So one day, long time ago, I would say over 30 years, pretty much like 30 years ago, a college professor had an open session. I was there. I was a student. I was not a professor. I was a student. Listening to his, teachings. I think it was a science teaching, science class. Professor Schneider. I remember his last name. I can't recall his first name. Remember, this is like 30 years ago. So he said he had an open session with his students. It wasn't a subject about science. The questions, open session meaning Q&A, session, 1 hour of the class. The class, university, college was for 40 or I think 40 minutes, session, 40 minutes per, hour, school hour, and then he says that, he opened up the Q&A for students. I would say we were as I recall, around 20 to 25 students. I can't recall exact number, but we had, it wasn't a huge amount of students, but it was a small amount, around 20 to 25 students, that between male and female students. And one of the questions the student asked was, he says, I was a male student, Professor, why you are still teaching at 84 years old? Professor Schneider was an 84-year-old professor at that community college. This is a community college. So it's still a college. I mean, community college, some people, say that, well, community college is like junior college. It's not, it's not even a 4-year college degree or an Ivy League college or other university. You can have a master's degree on your own. Community college is like, it's like a junior college. It is a junior college, but he was still a Professor Schneider. I mean, respectfully, he was the dean of his department. 84 years old, think about that. So, the question was, back to the question, right, of this particular student, he asked the question, why are you still teaching? I mean, you're 84 years old. Shouldn't you be retired? Or, living abroad somewhere, have a nice retirement, taking care of the kids, or doing your gardening. I don't know why people keep linking gardening with old age, which is okay. I love gardening. In one of my videos, I show you my garden not long ago. I don't want to keep showing you what I have my garden. But I love gardening, since long time ago. I wasn't in my 20s. I remember doing gardening, helping my grandma doing the garden. So it's not like a something that you go, oh, now you have, if you like gardening, that means you're old. I mean, some people think that, right? And some other people may think that, oh, if you need a dog, if you feel lonely, because people get lonely in the older age. And so they link, automatically, they assume that you're old. I mean, the people, that person is old because you like gardening, or you like cooking, you like the kitchen, you like a puppy, you like a pet, more than ever. So it's like a companion, right? That you're so starving for companionship that you need a pet, which maybe you never had a pet, right? Some people never have a pet. But suddenly after you're reaching 60 years old, after retirement, after you for Social Security, now suddenly you want a pet, right? Cat or a dog. But going back to this professor, the story of the Professor Schneider, 84, I mean, I remember him just like it was yesterday. He said that if somebody was still listening, that he will keep teaching. So he didn't need the money, he said. He didn't need, because people wonder, I mean, is he in a bad shape of money? I mean, financially? He's 84, he was 84, now I don't know where he is now, or if he's still living. I mean, this is 30 years, but he's not dead, If he's still living, he'll be like 110 years, I mean, kind of 15 years old, which is a long time. But he said that if anybody is still listening in the world, even if 2 people were listening, he will be still talking. And that gives him life. But while teaching was his life, he says. He didn't need the money. He has his own house, he said, in his answer, right? He made a long answer. He says, that's a good question. One of the best questions of the class. That why he was still teaching after, being 84 years old. And he said, That's what he said. That being 84, he still had his wife. I remember he saying that he wasn't living alone. He had his wife, but his wife was not listening anymore. Listening anymore, because not because of hearing problems, right? But she wasn't listening because they were married for like 56 years, or something like that. More than 50 years. So she didn't listen to him anymore. I mean, he would talk about things, and she would just say but she was still, she was just as old as him. But that his wife was tired of him, that he never, he didn't want to listen to him no more. So she was just went and then would you like a coffee, and she would serve coffee, but he didn't want to bother. But as we students there at that moment, at that community college, as a student, we were listening to him. He was the teacher, science teacher, and you couldn't blink, right? So while there were still people listening to him, he would be still teaching. It wasn't about the money. He said he had enough savings to it. But that was his life. That's what made him feel alive. Think about that last statement, which is the most important statement. Just the fact that some people, especially you, he said, young people, you guys here, the 20-something people, young fellows, some of these kids in community college, 19 years old, 18, 20-something. I was already 20-something, I think. I mean, I was one of the oldest kids, oldest, students there. But it wasn't 30 yet. I mean, it was 20-something. But I mean, the fact that there were still people, and you young people listening to me while I'm teaching, that I feel connected. I feel connected. That makes me feel alive. Think about last statement again. Alive, meaning, guys, how many times have we those feelings of if nobody's listening to us? It's like we feel like, well, isolated from society, right? In a way, isolated from society, of that whatever we say is doesn't have value anymore. Like saying anything we say, we have opinions, right? About different things in life, about politics, about life, life experiences, living abroad, living as an expat, but few people seem to be listening. In fact, there are guys, with YouTube channels like a grumpy British guy, British something in the Philippines. I don't have seen. Some of you have seen him. He's a thin guy, like a skinny guy, and at one time he went, toothless. I remember months ago, and I'm sure that now that when I say he went toothless, he had no teeth for a couple of weeks, because he was changing. He was in the middle of the procedure to get his teeth done. So he wasn't posting anything. That's the grumpy old guy in the Philippines. Something like So I think I can't recall exactly the name of his channel. So his channel had like a couple thousand subscribers, not a big channel, and his daily views. I was watching him. He went around 200 to 250, and who knows, maybe after a few days or a week, he will go over 1,000 views per day, 1,000 views per video. In which, by the way, he will make a little money off of that. So, but and sometimes I watch him like a couple of days later. One of his videos, it had only 60 views. I mean, think about that. You have 2,000 subscribers. He had back then, a few months ago. And if he had only 60 people watching his videos, that's a very low watching, low views, basically. It's like saying almost nobody's watching him. Only 60 people. I mean, out of loyalty, even whatever he's saying, and he was talking, I did love his persistency, even going to the dental procedure. He had a hard time talking. I mean, you have an issue with your teeth, right? So he was like rambling with no teeth. I could hardly understand what he was saying, but I stick with it. I stick with that video. I said, I watched the whole video. He was live, he was live streaming. I said, man, he's brave. Okay? Whatever he is, even if only 2 people are watching, right? Only 10 views, but he's brave enough to come with his subscribers or viewers, even 2 viewers, 10 viewers, whatever he was. But he was brave enough, even with it in pain. I don't know. He went through procedure the same day, and he was posting a video, live streaming. A few hours later, he said, just came because in his account he says he was just um, back to from the dentist in the Philippines. I think he lives in Cebu or somewhere in Cebu area. But he says, I just came from the dentist office, but I wanted to talk to you guys, and he made his account to the dentist office. But the feeling of putting together these two stories, Dr. Snyder in college when I was a student, and putting together with this story of grumpy, uh, not sick grandpa. I'm not talking about the sick grandpa, another YouTuber in the Philippines, which is a little crazy, but this fellow, grumpy guy, grumpy British, expat in the Philippines, that guy, that YouTuber, a brave, and I think the feeling of somebody's listening to him, somebody at least is sending a comment, that made him feel alive. That made him the day, man, the day he went to the dental office. Of course, it was sad. I mean, who wants to go to the dental office and being smiley or being upbeat? You can never say that. I haven't met not one person that can say, oh, I went to the dental office and it's very fun. But that grumpy, old man, I think he's in his 80s. I think he's very more. And I just compare with Dr. Snyder, my college professor, a long time ago, that the thing that made him feel alive and still going, and that he's going to be still teaching until whenever he was the dean of his department. So if you're a dean, nobody's going to fire you. I mean, legally, the college, the community can't fire you, can't let you go unless you're not able to walk, right, or teach. That's why I said, as long as I can walk and come to to this class, and young kids like you are still listening, and next year, the following year, he was still teaching, and the year after. So there were new kids coming to the community college, 18, 19 years old, listening to him. So that was life, man. Life, not just generational connection. An 84 years old fellow, and 18 years, that's a 70-year gap difference between a student and a professor. What do they have in common? A student, an 19-year-old student, an 84-year professor at a community college? Guys, almost nothing, right? Back then, I'm talking about way a little bit back then, right? Like I said, close to 30 years ago. There was no cell phone yet, right? There was no all these technologies nowadays you have. But you have to still make connection, with a young student, 19-year-old. So there was still wisdom to wisdom to give to this student. There was still, and the student was still listening. Students, back then it wasn't, with bad mouth, or this, these kids nowadays, how they act, they don't respect the elderly and everything like that. Everyone was respectful to him, and of course, if you that disrespect, he will kick you out basically of the class. Basically, I mean, if you're disrespectful, but so that connection that gave him life. Apparently, his wife, of course, I mean, he had his wife very much his same age. I'm talking Dr. Snyder back then. But the feeling of having connection with the younger generation and having some people still listening to you. But let's say that you're just in a couch like this, sitting just watching TV. If you are 70 years old, 80 years old, just in a couch like this, and like just watching TV all day long on a TV set like this, what I have here. Just watching soap opera and just waiting to die. Of course, nobody's going to listen to you, right? You're just sitting there waiting to die. That kind of lifestyle is not going to take you nowhere. I mean, if you are living in a nursing home, it's even worse. I used to work in a nursing home. Some of my residents, I was a nurse's aide, and I was a helper for them and to help them out. And some residents didn't want to talk. I didn't want to. I tried to make my conversation, try to make a genuine and legitimate conversation. Something like a productive conversation with my residents sometimes, but didn't want to talk sometimes. And they were in good health, but didn't want to start a conversation. They figured they just look at me like this, and they were like just watching, staring at the TV like this, watching all movies, or the old movies from the 1940s. The Golden Girls. I remember those programs, watching the Golden Girls. I remember those three ladies, sisters, ladies. On sitcoms from the 80s, popular in the 80s, things like that. Watching. Sometimes a conversation is needed, but that connection is always needed. The older generation and younger generation. But this going back to grumpy, British and the Philippines guy, even without his regular teeth. I mean, he was trying to get us something prosthetic, something put on his teeth because he had no teeth at all, no tooth, right? So I think the day he was, coming out of the dentist, where you know he was posting, he was live streaming, and that was brave enough. What the whole point of this story is that even though that people with wisdom, I just gave you two examples, right? That it has been an inspiration in my life. I remember that Dr. Snyder, I'm 84 years old. I'm still watching sometimes this fellow, his videos in the Philippines. This grumpy old man from the Philippines. I mean, from the British, from the United Kingdom, who lives now in Cebu City. Now that they think they give wisdom to us and to everybody. I mean, and here I don't know if he's watching me, my channel, but he watch other channels too, and he's humble enough to say, I'm learning. He's still learning stuff, learning things from what's going on in the world, and that connection makes him live this life he's living as an expert in the Philippines. So, guys, what's the behind the message, behind the point of this whole story is that while even two people are still listening, let's keep talking, guys. Let's keep saying what we need to say. Make a reflection. Stay on touch with what's going on around us. Let's keep giving opinions. Let's teaching things that we learn from everyday life and sharing our experiences, guys. I wanted to share this with you. So even if just two or three people are listening, I'll just keep posting myself. Just giving my inspiration is these two good people I met. I met one of them. I met personally, Dr. Snyder, back there in college, like 30 years ago, and this grumpy old fellow from the United Kingdom who lives in Cebu, lives in Cebu, has his uh, on YouTube. So I listen to them. I you know get in touch. That's a way of connecting with him, with other YouTubers too, of course. Let's keep sharing. Let's keep YouTubing and just let's get things happening, good things and new things happening for everybody, and for us, of course, in this living life and as an expert. See you guys in the next video. I meant in my heart to share this with you guys, and hopefully you were there all the way through the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We'll keep sharing our stories, my story, and any other story that comes on my way. Thanks and have a nice evening, and see you in the next video, guys.